And so this session is From Nothing to Neuters. And so your moderator for the day is Stacy LeBaron. Stacy is the leading voice in community cat management with over 30 years of experience in animal welfare. She is the founder of the Community Cats podcast and co-creator of the Community Cats Program Management Certificate course at the University of the Pacific. Stacy also co-owns the Community Cat Clinic in Georgia and serves as treasurer and director of strategy for United Spay Alliance. Her work focuses on empowering grassroots efforts in designing sustainable, data-driven programs to reduce cat overpopulation. And her unofficial tagline is turning your passion for cats into action. And so, in our panelists for today, in I think alphabetical order here, we have Angela Chapman. Angela has been with New Leash on Life in Middle Tennessee since May of 2015, playing a key role in the organization's growth and evolution. Originally operating as an animal shelter, the organization expanded in 2017 to include a low-cost spay-neuter clinic, a transformative addition which now serves more than 5,000 animals annually. Under her leadership, the clinic has significantly reduced the number of animals entering the shelter by providing accessible services to the community. Next up, we have Tema Martin. Tema has worked for 4 Utah-based animal welfare organizations, beginning in 1993, doing education and public relations. She worked in the animal welfare field for more than 30 years and is now founder and director of Operation Population, a new nonprofit, low-cost spay-neuter clinic and pet resource center. She's also the Utah state leader for United Spay Alliance and believes the best way to save the lives of pets is to prevent so many from being born. She lives in Salt Lake City with 4 adopted tuxedo cats, Fizzy Puff, Garbanzo, Squishy, and Flash. Those are terrific names. And 3 adopted dogs, Pitbull Petunia, an English Bulldog mix named Penny All, and an American Bully Chihuahua mix named Clyde. Fantastic naming choices, no notes. So shout out to Tema again. She's part of our state leader network representing Utah. And then our third panelist, we have Brandy Winkleman. Brandy is the president and executive director of A Hope, a nonprofit organization dedicated to accessible veterinary care and spay-neuter services in rural Florida. With nearly a decade of experience in animal welfare, Brandy led the creation of a high-volume clinic from the ground up, starting with no building, no staff, and no funding. So, all right, I'll let you folks take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Bree. Thank you so much for the introduction and everything. We're very excited. I'm very excited about this panel because I feel very strongly that we have to make change happen. And so we're here to hear about these stories from these 3 wonderful women about how they decided to make change in their own community for the animals, utilizing spay-neuter as a critical tool in our toolkit for reducing pet overpopulation. My first question for the panelists is going to be about, sort of what was your aha moment that made you want to start a clinic initiative, and how did you believe that you really could do this? And I'm going to kick this off with Angela, because she's got that 5,000 surgeries a year number under her belt. So I'm hoping she can maybe share the story of like, how did she get to 0 to 5,000? Where did she believe she could do that? And what was the aha moment, Angela, for you?
When I started, we were only had a shelter program. And obviously, the more you hear stories of why people need to surrender a pet or why they had an oops litter, you just know that's a part of the problem. So basically, that shelter environment and just seeing this repeated cycle over and over and over without a solution was, I'd say, the biggest push for why we were able to get ourselves going. But we were fortunate that ours was, we had a donor in the community that basically we asked for a very small gift, proved that we could use that to really go far, and then she actually funded our building. So it was one of those, like, just work your hardest and you might just get the best gift ever. So
Right. And I do feel like, fundraising is a big question, and I think about these sort of, I say, gifts from God sort of just like magically appear, because we do hear like, oh, it's so hard to raise money for spay neuter. And I feel that at some point, if you have access to leadership donors, which it sounds like you had a leadership base, you weren't starting necessarily, I mean, a donor base, you weren't starting from scratch because you had a shelter donor base behind you. But if there were folks in your donor base that could drink the spay neuter Kool-Aid, so to speak, and think strategically and say this could be more impactful, that there's a way to pivot some of your donors over into that spay neuter space. I'm going to switch over to Tema to find out a little bit more about the history of your aha moment, and how did you get going on your journey too?
Well, after decades in different animal organizations, towards the end of my working for a national organization that I felt had deprioritized spay neuter, I left there and looked for another job and thought that I would easily find another job, and I didn't. And obviously, the universe had something different in mind for me. And after a year of just doing contract work and looking for other work, a building went up for sale in our neighborhood that I always thought was so cute. It's a mid-century building, and I would walk by it and go, what could I do with that? And I was thinking, oh, would I open a vintage store? Like, I wasn't serious. And then I saw a for sale sign apparently on the day that it went up for sale. And of course, when you don't have a job, you should try to buy a building. And so we did. And I just knew that this was a need in our community, not only because, and honestly, I mean, I'm a mile away from 3 different low-cost spay neuter programs. It's not a need because it doesn't exist. It's a need because there's more need than what can be, reasonably handled by the other clinics. And many of the established ones are booked out 6, 8, 12 weeks. And I kept seeing posts of people giving away oops litters because their pet got pregnant while they were waiting for an appointment. And so I thought, this is an opportunity to, put my money where my mouth is and, make this happen. And it gives me a platform to talk about it because I feel passionately about spay neuter as a solution and prevention as being vital to saving lives. So we just bought the building, spent unfortunately a year getting it up and running. And then we've been open since basically since May or June. So my aha moment was seeing the for sale sign and knowing that this was meant to be. And, here we are.
And you are doing this as a 501c3 organization, is that
Yeah.
correct? And Angela, you are also a 501c3, right? Right. Brandy, what's your story?
So my aha moment, I want to say, is I was volunteering at the local animal shelter. I volunteered there daily, Monday through Friday, for about 2 years. And when I was there, I was just taking care of the walking the dogs, playing with the cats, whatever I was asked to do. And there was many days where I would see carts of cats and kittens just staying in their carriers, reaching out from their carriers, crying. And I always knew where that cart was going. It was getting rolled straight into the back to be euthanized. We had the 3rd highest kill rate in the entire state of Florida. And it wasn't that the people inside of the shelter were terrible, because my true aha moment was a day whenever a good friend of mine was working there, and I asked her what she had to do for the day because she looked, just like overworked. And she calmly and straightforward told me that she had like 47 animals to put down that day, as if it was just, a stack of paperwork on her desk. And that was my moment where I just thought, it's not about, we were working so hard to get animals out of the shelter, was about stopping the animals from coming in. And the biggest problem was the procreation out in the community and the education out in the community, the mindsets out there. And so my moment was whenever a friend who I know her whole world is animals could look at me straight in the face and tell me that she was killing so many animals in a day and not even blink twice about it.
Brandy, I'm going to just do a follow-up question here. How did you feel that you understood that, high volume, high quality spay neuter would impact population? Did you see it in any of your other earlier jobs, or see the success of it, or just learning about it on a national level? I mean, why did you feel so passionate that you knew that if I built a clinic, the population for cats and dogs would go down?
I just kind of deep dove into research and finding ways that, I could take animals to get fixed and help out community members who didn't have access to it. And our nearest clinic was 2.5 hours one way. And so I started just taking small trips back in 2017 over to that clinic to get what I could fixed. And I just realized, that we could do that too. I would work inside the clinic for the day and volunteer my time, and I just picked up on it that I could do this. And so I got really involved learning from, Maddie's Fund, National Kitten Coalition, um, ASPCA. I just kind of deep dove into how to make something so functional and so impactful work for our community.
Angela, your clinic is part of a shelter. So the work that your clinic has done, and when did your clinic start operating, and have you felt any positive impacts on your shelter population?
The short answer is yes. But so we started in September 2017. We actually take animals. So there are other low cost clinics in other counties, but to the north and east of us, there are not. So we are one of the last high population areas. And then you get into some really rural spaces where, again, access is really the biggest barrier. So just allowing people from anywhere to come to our clinic is not only helping with our number of people trying to surrender pets at the shelter, it's also giving the opportunity for people in counties with no support at all the option to get something fixed. So, and we do TNR is about 20% of our yearly numbers. And so people having access to TNR has been a really big deal. So we have counties that are very rural that have dedicated volunteers coming to us every week. And so those counties don't have shelters at all. And then our county does, but we just basically see less and less kittens and puppies. We see adults that someone may have to rehome because they've passed away or something's happened, but we just don't get near the kitten and puppy requests that we did. Also, because when we did take kittens or puppies, you had to get your adult fixed, and then we also have a pantry program, and the way you can stay on it is if you get your pets fixed. So everything basically to help people keep their pets and keep the family whole. We're also trying to help, like, not burden you more, but also not burden our system more.
Gotcha. Tema, I believe your clinic is open maybe one or two, only a couple of days a week. You're still in this ramp up. So the pain and suffering of the build out and the startup is fresh with you. So what lessons did you learn in that process?
We're open currently 2 days a week, and then I have other veterinarians who have reached out and wanted to be part of our team, and everybody has other jobs. All of the doctors have jobs at other clinics. And so basically I'm trying to build out another day or two a week because, people are like, oh, I can do 2 days a week or two days a month. And then somebody else is like, I'd love to do 1 day a month. And so trying to work all that out. I'm so grateful for everybody that has reached out and wanted to be part of this, though, because I talk to them and they see the vision and they're so excited. And I'm like, I'll take you 1 day a month. That'll be great. I think for me, one of my regrets and one of the things that I wish I was better at is just like planning. And I kind of went into this with I can do this. And then, sometimes I look around and go, it's kind of crazy that a public relations person made a vet clinic. But then sometimes I think, well, I wish I had a plan. And so I wish I had put more, like, I wish I'd been more structured about putting things together. And, I'm trusting the universe to make it work, but that's probably not the most efficient way of doing things. So I'm excited that we're going to be expanding to more days. We just got a Heigl Foundation grant. And so we will be doing 100 animals the week after next, over 3 days. So I have a Saturday for that week. And they're paying for the costs of all the spay neuter microchips and rabies vaccines that week. So, and I've set up a couple TV segments to promote that next week. And so I'm excited because this will be really the first really putting us out there moment. And I'm excited to be able to, share how grateful we are that the Heigl Foundation is supporting this baby organization. One thing I've realized is it's hard to get funding when you're new. And a lot of places won't even let you apply until you've been in operation for a year. So the fact that there are some out there that say, yeah, we see you, we know what you're doing, we want to support you. So that's very exciting. But I think planning and knowing the things better that are hard for me, I wish that I were better at that, and I will get better.
Excellent. I'm just looking at the questions, couple quick answers. So Angela is from Tennessee and Tema is in Utah. But I'm going to go swing over to Brandy because based on at least what I saw on the website, when you were under construction and building, you seem to be pretty organized about this whole process. So tell us about your journey in building your clinic and how has it been going?
I'm a very organized person. So my background's actually in accounting. And so I am methodical. I love formulas and numbers and spreadsheets, and I love organization. I can tell you that it does not matter how organized you are, it is complete chaos opening up a clinic. Um, I'm one of those people, I can do anything, especially nowadays, because everything is available to learn online. So even if you couldn't do it 5 minutes ago, there's probably some 5-minute process that you can learn it in. And so I've always been overly ambitious and dedicated to the mission to the point of I can do anything. And realizing in this whole process, there were numerous things that not only could I not do, but I had to leave it in the hands of others in order to keep on mission, to keep on track, to get where I needed to go, because I'm the kind of person who wants it yesterday. And I was working with a whole team, I was having to rely on people in ways that I never did before. I was always do it myself, get it done, move out of the way, you're taking too long. And I really had to have a lot of faith in a lot of people along the way to keep it that organized, to keep myself on a track of going, okay, all right, it's not today, but maybe it'll be tomorrow, and things like Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Sally, and COVID all informed me that it's not going to be tomorrow or even 3 years from now. And so I had to have even more patience that I was not used to having ever. So we kept it organized and on track, but along the way, you have to let some things go that the most meticulous person wouldn't normally let go in order to remember what you're doing and why you're doing it. And having that team surrounding you that's supportive, um, not only physically, but also mentally, and having different levels of intelligence on your board and different backgrounds surrounding you, that really helps you stay on track and stay organized, because it's not you building a clinic, it's not you doing something for the community, it's all of us doing something for our community and getting community buy-in. So it was just a lot. It was just a lot bigger of a picture and a lot more working cogs that I was ever used to dealing with ever. And so I'm glad you see it as organized, because we purchased 25 acres back in 2019 with the ultimate goal of building a building for every reason animals are euthanized. And so the very first building was the low cost clinic, which is a 4,000 square foot facility now. And it's on only 4 of the acres was cleared for that. And it's there now. It's here now. But it has not been organized along the way. And it has been one heck of a roller coaster ride. I'll tell you that.
Do you think, and I'll just go around the room with a yes or no, um, do you think there would be value in having like a startup clinic roadmap? I mean, I understand you can't predict everything, but just something, in that framework where here we are, we have the how to do a wet lab or what the wet labs are all about. But, would that be a startup clinic roadmap? Would that be a good idea? I see Tema, you're nodding.
It's a
Absolutely.
different I guess different thing. So like we were woods, it was 25 acres of woods that we had to clear. And so we have a very different startup than maybe somebody who, like Tema purchased a building and Angela modded facilities she had. And so it just depends. So absolutely having a roadmap, but I don't think there is one, because every community, every building, and every financial structure and every organization, it would be the biggest encyclopedia you've ever seen in your entire world.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some commonalities and then there are some potential differences, obviously, preparing your site, how if you're doing a lease build out, like, I mean, the clinics that I'm involved with in Georgia, we lease the properties, so we're not owners, so that's different. That's understanding those kinds of contracts. But and I'm sure in private practice, there are manuals out there to help private practice veterinarians and owners to build, their clinics and try and understand what are the potential pitfalls that might be out there. You mentioned board, having a good board. Angela, since I think your organization is probably the oldest in the virtual room here, how was your board receptive to the idea of having a clinic?
They were very receptive. They were just hesitant because of the cost. And again, not the building, but figuring out how to, staffing and projecting cost and that kind of thing when we only had one focus. So yeah, absolutely supportive, but a little bit of like guesstimating, trying to figure out like how long does it take us to get enough surgeries to actually cover cost, and what does it look like if we have bad weather or whatever. So yeah, 100% on board, but it was certainly a but what if along the way.
And what are you charging the public for surgeries at this point in time?
Dogs are 100, cats are 50, and TNR cats are 30.
And how well does that cover your costs?
Pretty well, fortunately, yeah. Um, and the TNR is the big one that we're just trying really hard not to raise, because again, people outside of our area, because we have some funding in our county, but people from other areas don't, and we want people to feel like that access is the biggest deal for us. So we raised the dog prices recently and nobody blinked, which told us that was the right call. But our cat prices we've kept pretty solid, because in our area, that's our bigger issue.
Got you. But it sounds like from the board's perspective, they're pretty happy that you are running a somewhat close to revenue neutral program. Where does your adoption program also operate at revenue neutral?
Black hole.
There's the moral of the story, folks.
Never, ever, ever has it ever run in the red and the black, ever.
Right. And so in terms of, if you want to propose this to your board of directors as if you want to do a pivot within your organization to be able to serve more, with our Catmobile program, we were 6,000 plus cats, revenue neutral or in the black. We were adopting out 700 cats, and I was spending a significant chunk of my time raising a couple $100,000 a year at minimum to make that revenue neutral. If you are not doing program-based budgeting in your organization with these different types of programs, it's really valuable to do it so that then your board of directors can really see what are the programs that are really straining the organization financially, so that there's a lot of clarity there. And it took time, but once it happened, then they're like, oh, we really want to be able to do this. I know Tema and Brandy, you're both relatively in this like ramp up process. So is the ultimate goal, Brandy, you've got the accounting stuff going on, the ultimate goal to be revenue neutral, or are you feeling like you're going to have to do a lot of fundraising to keep your program up and running?
So our organization has been around for 8 years now. And so the property and the clinic have just opened since July. But the way that we have our programs set up, I mean, yes, of course, we need the clinic to be revenue generating, but startup, obviously, you're going to have, a 10, 15% deficit in the first year. That's kind of normal. I will say about the other programs, absolutely, it's great to isolate what the income and expenses are for each of those programs. But if I put an outdoor raggedy cat online and I say that this cat needs to be fixed and I need somebody to pay for it to get fixed, vaccinated, and ear tipped, or I hold up a super cute kitten for adoption who's just not available for adoption yet we need financial help in order to provide care for that animal. I can guarantee you that there's going to be more than $50 that comes in for that kitten, and that kitten is going to help fund more cats getting fixed, including that kitten itself along the way. And so it's kind of using your marketing strategies among your different programs in order to bring attention into what the ultimate mission is. And as long as every question that you ask yourself and every step that you're taking is always going towards the mission, then it's all for good and it's all going towards the same thing of helping animals get the care that they need.
And I will just add that you can do a spay neuter story even if you don't have um, if you don't have like an adoption program. So, you know, Kristen in the background will laugh because I talk about the project we did at a barn in July of 2024 up here in right down the street from my house with about 27 cats. And there were like 7 kittens, and we did the TNR them all in one weekend. And so that was all really great and happy. We made a whole story about it. There was a story about one particular kitten that ended up getting adopted, used it as a fund to need in a fundraiser, which pulled in, you know, it was like $20,000 or $30,000 in a fund to need. But it was the journey around this whole story. And like when the whole group of cats came into the clinic, the MASH style clinic, they had written "Welcome Vermont Cats" like on the board, like they'd been
Aw.
told the whole story about the barn and everything. And so it's, you know, Tema, talk about this whole like importance with messaging and storytelling and how that can really help us support our programs.
Well, I will tell you that you just inspired me to ask for money more with my posts. Obviously, I'm just building a following on Facebook and Instagram, but I mean, my background being in public relations, I feel like this is a big part of what I would like to do with my organization besides the actual spay neuter is just more awareness, both locally and nationally, because as we all know, a lot of there's been less sort of prioritization and talk about spay neuter as and the importance of spay neuter, and I feel like we need to bring it back into the conversation. And it's bizarre to me because having been, you know, through this for so many years, I think a lot of these same people that I knew 20 years ago that were so passionate about spay neuter now don't see it as important. And I'm waiting for that to come back around because I don't know how it went out of style, but I feel very, very strongly that we all have the ability to take this message. And it's so simple. I mean, when you talk about prevention, and, you know, I love Will from Flatbush Cats has my favorite, the way he discusses this is so I think, eloquent, but he talks about we need upstream solutions that we can't keep up downstream. And to me, that's such a clear picture of what's happening. So when you know, if you, I always tell people we're up to, as of Thursday, we've spayed and neutered 450 animals since we opened, being open 1 or 2 days a week. Certainly not high volume levels yet, but I'm proud of it. But I always tell people if every one of those cats or dogs had even one or fathered one litter of 6 or one more litter of 6, because many of them that we see have already had lots of litters, but we've already prevented 2,700 animals from being born. And that, I think, is really makes it clear how prevention makes a difference. 2,700 animals in an already saturated community with overwhelmed shelters and rescues, that's a lot. That's a big burden. So preventing them from being born is so simple. And so, you know, I really want to work hard at that message and get that out there. As far as social media goes, I've tried to share some cute stories. I mean, it's all kind of on me. I'm the only one doing all this, so I don't do as much as I wish I did. But, you know, sharing stories inspires people. People share posts. I've gotten tons of people just from Facebook coming to me and knowing that we're open. So I think that focusing on the messaging with a call to action so people know what you're asking for, whether it's money or you know, letting people know that you have low cost appointments, or encouraging them to help their neighbors, or, you know, think of what you want people to do and then put it out there.
I would say if you are considering starting a program now, there are extra resource challenges with regards to the cost of staff. You know, it's something that's very hard to you know, be able to fund. So that means we do have to wear our fundraising hats even more so in this business, especially in the beginning. You know, and you can fundraise in any way, shape, or form. And if anyone wants to brainstorm about fundraising, please feel free to reach out to me, because we started our MASH clinics, our Sunday spay neuter clinics for feral cats, which is volunteer people, but was funded by donation cans at 7-Elevens. I don't even know if they still exist. I mean, and nobody does change anymore, but you know, we had a person who had 15 cats in their backyard in a town called Stoneham. She's like, I don't have cash, but I do own 7-Elevens. So can I put a donation can out, and that will help fund? So I was like, okay, let's do this for about 3 or 4 months. And each can brought in almost like $100 a month in change. And so it was like $700, which was enough to buy the supplies to be able to do the monthly clinic that time. And we just had those donation cans to start the process out on fundraising. Other people got to know it and like it, and the volunteers started supporting it. And so it's all self-funded, you know, and it assists anywhere from like 600 to 1,000 cats a year. And it pretty much runs on its own with volunteers. And not to say that it's easy, but yet it's another model of what could be done. You don't have to think like, oh, I can't start a whole big clinic like this. You know, maybe I do a couple of MASH events to kind of feel it out, to see if it's like, do I like this? Or is it, you know, is this part of my calling, or is this going to be somebody else's, or do I create a committee? The Sunday MASH clinics, I didn't, we had a volunteer who was actually running an adoption program and a barn relocation program. And she realized there's no way I can relocate all these feral cats. So she sort of realized the barn relocation wasn't working. And she was a Hewlett Packard executive. And so she was all in the whole process of things and discovering how, you know, she was all into the instruments. And I mean, she took it down to the micro level as to sort of what worked in this whole system. But I want to ask Brandy, as you are building up here and getting your systems in place together, is it hard getting everybody, all your staff and team on board with like the same system, or do you allow people to change things around? I know, you know, not everybody does the same thing the same way. So how do you have a common ground there?
Are you referring to like training new staff members who are just coming on? So I have always followed the ASPCA protocols and methods along the way, and the two closest clinics that are 2.5 hours away are both Humane Alliance clinics. And so that's kind of where my basis was. So whenever we brought on team members, it was kind of like, this is the way that we're going to do it. This is where we're going to start from. And the staffing has been probably one of the most difficult parts of opening the clinic, I will say, because you want everybody to have ownership and make it their space and everybody work cohesively. But whenever there is not there's not an absolute trainer that they're coming in under, you know, this is, you know, we're talking about organizations that have clinics not run by vets. And so I obviously, you know, I tell my whole team, this is my first time opening a clinic. Yeah, I've been running an organization for 8 years, but it's my first time opening up a clinic, and I'm not a veterinarian. And so there are some shortcomings to what I'm learning, but I'm also learning it with my team. And so it's difficult if you don't have everyone on the same page coming in, which there's few and far between of people who have worked in high volume clinics who understand what goes into opening up a space, who have the energy to keep that space open and going. So bringing these very different backgrounds into the same space and trying to get everybody to work cohesively was pretty difficult because they, all kind of have their own way and want to do it their own way. And there's no right or wrong way whenever you're first opening. You're all learning to do it together. So it, it has been pretty difficult. We just recently got someone who is able to be my cohesive person, who's the trainer of the newcomers. So it's difficult when there's no absolute way that they're coming into. Everybody's learning at the same time, and so I won't lie and say that was easy, because literally everybody who started on day one has already been let go, and I've already got a whole new team. So
Well, and I mean, and that's not, that's not surprising where there's turnover in the beginning and expectations. I think that there's definitely a trend towards having a medical director of some type, whether it's a practicing person, or it may be a veterinarian that's on your board of directors that's overseeing a certain set of standards. Then there's the doctor on record, whose DEA license is connected to this. I think everybody should look at the veterinary practice standards if they're going to be considering doing this for their individual state, because there's a lot of variety out there as to what you are able to do versus not able to do in each state as a veterinarian, as a technician, as a business owner, how that relationship is with that licensed veterinarian in the state can be different. Sometimes you have to be a partnership. Sometimes you don't have to be. So just, depending on the state you're into, there is a bit of research that has to even just do the whole feasibility study of, is this going to work in the state or not? And again, as Dr. Becky said earlier, she was talking about she started in a truck, and then she moved up and she moved up, and there is a journey you can take, or you can just go right into the stationary. I've seen many stationary clinics that are really small spaces with basically, a surgical room, a little bit of check-in and prep area, and it's not a ton of square footage. Tema, I don't know if you're willing to share what the layout looks like in your place, if you'd call yourself a small, medium, or large clinic.
Realistically, it's probably small. It feels large to me. It was originally a boat repair shop and then a real estate office. So it's 2,200 square feet. We have a surgery room with 2 tables, and we have a room that we made into our induction room with sinks that it didn't previously have water in there. So that was one of the bigger projects. We made one of the bathrooms into a laundry room, and then we have a big recovery area and some other, I'm in the break room. We have some other little rooms that, we have a lab with our autoclave and our safe for our drugs and everything, and then a back room that has the dog kennels in it. I think probably one of the best compliments I got when it started looking like this, when we did a lot of work to it, was one person said, "So this wasn't a vet clinic before," which made me feel really good. And somebody else said, "It looks like this is what this building was meant to be," but it had nothing, its whole life since 1959 had nothing to do with what it is now. So I'm glad that it looks like a vet clinic.
Excellent.
And we just, for the most part, we didn't change anything structurally. We just, changed some plumbing and electrical and, so that we could get the things we needed into the rooms where we needed them.
Angela, would you like to share a little bit on this topic?
Sure. Our clinic also has 2 surgery tables. But it's for one vet to bounce back and forth versus having 2 vets on staff. And so our support team is who moves and brings them in and out and does, getting them ready and then recovery after. So I think sometimes it just depends on what makes sense for your team, because we had a very small space we could use. So I think we're about 3,000 square feet. But the bulk of it is the pre-op area and the surgery area. But also, like, we didn't even think about a break room in the plans, because we were so focused on flow and how many animals and, how do we make this work to make sure it's successful. And we didn't think about the simple things like, where are we going to store things? Where are the staff going to have lunch? So that's the other part, that it's like, we're all trying to do what's the mission, and we sometimes forget about the humans. So
Yeah. Lots of different questions about the different delivery systems out there and how to decide what's the best way to go for your organization. And I will say that I just did a presentation called Cat Math, Part 1 and Part 2. Part 2 is about delivery systems, the different types, and whether, strategically which style works best for your organization. So, couple tips. If your organization is like on a coastal area, or on a big lake or something like that, mobile may be a better way to go, or mash style, because if your range around your building is in an ocean area or an area that's not inhabited by a lot of folks, then you're not going to be able to draw the population you need to be able to support a high volume spay neuter clinic. There were, back in the day of Humane Alliance modeling, they had some pretty strict rules as to where you would be able to be located. And so that's why we decided to go with a mobile clinic, because we were out on the coast. And so 3/4 of our customers would have had to be on the ocean to be able to come into us, which didn't make much sense. There's also a lot of variability. So Angela, you had mentioned about being in rural areas. And if it was to a point where you needed to, drive to a rural area and provide the services out there because fewer people were able to drive in, that's where the mobile works. I know there's a lot on the on reservations, a lot of mobile clinics go out that way. But go ahead, Angela, you got your hand up.
yeah, I was just going to say the one reason mobile we found wasn't the most ideal for us, because you're not wrong, but because our biggest issue is large dogs and cats. Large dogs on a mobile unit, you just cannot meet the needs. And even with our brick and mortar, we have to have 1 day a month that is specifically for large dogs, because that's where we get backed up.
Right.
Because it's affordable and accessible. So people are wanting it, and we just have to. So yeah, for us, the mobile, because of big dogs, was our barrier.
It totally makes sense. And there's another option too, which is you can have a van go out and pick up the animals and bring them into your clinic too. So you kind of have to understand, do your own community clinic needs assessment to understand what may work within the sphere of the community. Yeah, and I mean, there's a whole range of different facilities you can use for MASH style. With the mobile clinic, we have used fire station bays for recovery with the mobile clinic, and we've pretty much used any place possible for recovery. Churches, we've used everything that would be offered to us. Brandy, go ahead.
Sorry, people are mentioning, all these different styles. And I will say, of course, that was in the beginning for us was like, we would love to do that anywhere. But then you get into mindsets too. And so finding a building that would even allow us to do anything like that was absolutely impossible in our area. As well as the guidelines on what has to be present inside of some place that's doing surgeries. And so checking with state laws on that, and having it in a clinic setting, we couldn't use anything that didn't have, protected behind the glass area or behind a wall for surgeries, or certain types of ventilation or certain depths of sinks. And so that was kind of an issue for us too. We didn't have anywhere to set up at. So that's why we started transporting out of the area 8 years ago. We had a 600 square foot building that we could use, but it still wasn't up to Florida code as far as what we could do surgeries inside of. And so we chose to use that building for overnight holding of animals. They got dropped off and volunteers left by 9 p.m. And then we were back by 3 a.m. to load up animals. That was the best use of our 600 square foot space, is to hold 50 to 60 animals overnight, dogs and cats, load them up into our big van in the morning and drive them over to the nearest clinic 2.5 hours away to start surgeries by 7:30 or 8 a.m.
Yep. And there's a great PDF that I have for my presentation, which we'll try and load up into the handouts, because I know Kristen knows exactly what I'm talking about, from the ASPCA, that has like a chart of all the different spay neuter delivery systems and what the pros and the cons are. And I used that with our board of directors in 2007. I used that exact document when we had our I used to do strategic planning in one day for 3 years. So I was like, okay, board, we're going to decide what we're going to do for the next 3 years today. This is what we're going to do. Because I'm not a fan of long-term drawn out strategic planning. That's just me. I like to get my top 3 goals and then I'm just going to move forward. So in 2007, we sat down, we had this big conversation about what our 3 big goals were. One of them was a spay neuter initiative of some type. And during that meeting, we ended up coming out with a mobile plan. But we used that as the bedrock. We used that analysis from the ASPCA, and I've found it very valuable when you're having a conversation with your board as to what they feel comfortable moving forward with. All right, and you guys are all okay. I know, Tema, what are you charging?
So how I came up with our prices, I added up all of the low cost spay neuter prices for all of the clinics within about an hour radius, and I picked the middle. So we're more than some and less than some. My female dogs are $250, male dogs are $200, female cats are $125, and male cats are $75. And then we do accept best friends vouchers for TNR, which means that people pay either either a $20 or a $0 copay, and then best friends reimburses for the rest. They up to $100. So a lot of all of our feral cats are supported by that. And then I work with people if I've donated a lot of surgeries for people that really, really want it done and just can't afford it. And so I tell people that's why we take donations, and the donations can support that as well. But people are thrilled with our public prices because I've called around, some clinics around here said that a large female dog could be $2,000 for a spay. And, on the low end for a cat neuter, people are getting quoted $400, $600, $800 for a cat neuter. So I haven't, most people have been like, wow, that's so inexpensive. So it seems to be working.
Brandy, what are you charging?
So I went into it believing that, once again, with the mission of lessening how many animals were entering the shelter, and the animals entering the shelter the most, of course, is the cats and then the large dogs. And so what I wanted to do was kind of a reverse system. And in the beginning, I was thinking of going with actually the larger dogs would be less than the smaller dogs. And then same thing with outdoor cats would cost less than indoor cats. But then I came to the realization that I had to have it make sense financially on the back end. And so instead of making that difference, what I ended up doing was all dogs, no matter what size they are $150. And all cats are 75, or sorry, 85 each. And the community cats, those are the only different ones. Those are $50 each. And the $50 package includes getting them fixed, vaccinated against rabies and ear tipped. And then the dog and the cat packages both include rabies and microchip. Because animals get picked up a lot in our area, and we really push microchipping, and that's another way to keep animals out of animal shelters. And so we upped our price just a little bit in order to include those things. And then also on our receipts for our guests, our clients, we include everything on those receipts, because a lot of people have this misconception that we don't use, pain meds or antibiotics or anything like that, because, we're just a bunch of crazy people, doing whatever to animals in the background to take, make sure that they're sterile. So on our receipts, it actually lists the pain meds that we used, and our pre-meds, our gabapentin for our cats, our Ace Torb for our dogs. We actually include all of those individual items on there, so they know that this package actually includes a lot more than what they're thinking of at the moment. And in our area, it's anywhere from 200 and up to get an animal fixed, and so it's really really competitive.
Oh, yeah. I see a question there by Emmy. I think Julie Jacobson yesterday was talking about like the group rate. And so I think that's kind of an interesting idea. That's hard from the bookkeeping side on the other side of the house. In the chat, folks, just put in the chat, yes, if you are considering creating some sort of a spay neuter initiative of some type in your area. Just wondering how many people are actually kind of going, yeah, definitely thinking about something. Okay, great, good. So there's lots of, so look at this. Okay, now this is big because if we have, look at all of this. So if these folks, if we all do it, look at all the love. Tema's got the love going. If we all do this, then we will be making things happening. So, for the animals and so I definitely am thinking that this may be a conversation and a support group of some kind, maybe a task force or some sort of a mastermind, the new clinic mastermind club of the day so that we can support and love each other to make sure that we can keep ourselves going forward and moving forward. And it's great. It's fantastic. So thank you all for being willing and I see Brandy, you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to add, because I know that support group would be, I am a crazy person. So, in the beginning and all I thought was I need to open up a clinic so we can fix as many animals as possible and stop them from dying in our shelters. Literally, that was the only thing I had in my mind. And so I jumped in head first. And all of the things that have come up along the way, places that you have to register with, people don't necessarily know that you have to register with the Department of Ag to even accept donations, OSHA compliance in your clinic. These are things outside of the animal welfare realm that aren't really talked about a whole bunch. And so people might not know all of the bones behind opening up what is a business. It doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit. It doesn't matter if you're a rescue organization. It doesn't matter, because this is a business. You're opening up a business, whether it just be the nonprofit itself or opening up a physical facility. You're opening a business. You have to know what a P&L statement is. You have to have some sort of bookkeeping on the back end. You have to be able to manage money and have an outline of who does what, who the go-to people are, because typically we're a all-in-one person in the beginning that does everything. So it can be overwhelming and you can lose track. And I can tell you, I pulled myself off of numerous things that I used to do a lot, because when you're too close to the project, you can get offended very easily. You can get compassion fatigue very easily. You can feel alone a lot. So you have to understand what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and find people on your team that can fill those weaknesses. And just having people supporting you and telling you what the next steps are is really helpful, because there is not one person in any profession that knows every bit of everything. I mean, you're not going to get a large animal veterinarian who necessarily is supposed to be skilled in neutering male rats just because they're a veterinarian. They have different specialties and different fields of study, and there is a lot that's involved in opening up a high volume clinic. There's a lot of training, a lot of new knowledge coming out. I mean, even the staffing part of it, I've ran businesses before, and the staffing is completely different, because now you're bringing in these passionate people who they think on a different level. It's not just that they come to work and they clock in and clock out and go home and you can pay them as much as you want to. No, you have to work for every penny that they get paid, and everything that they do reflects on your organization. And their dedication can actually put them in a different headspace than a regular employee going to work at Target or something. And so it's a lot of difference where you won't find where you can go to it. I mean, even getting insurance, explaining what you do to an insurance company before your clinic is open. You know, you're not a vet office, you're not a TNR group, you're not a shelter. You know, what are you? You're in this like middle unknown ground, and animal advocacy isn't a grant uh topic, and it's not an insurance avenue, and it's its own thing. And so there is a lot that goes into it that you have to work together, and you have to know who to ask questions to, and get that support and know that you're not alone. You know, yes, we all cry in the bathtub with our glass of wine sometimes, but we are not alone, and it takes other people who feel alone to tell you that you're not alone sometimes.
I'm going to do just a quick rapid fire around the room, just what your thoughts and opinions are. And then I have another just quick question because we're getting kind of near the end here. So Angela, how many technicians do you have per veterinarian or for your veterinarian?
A loaded question, but I have 5 support staff.
Tema.
It depends on the day and who's available. On a day with a lot of animals and a lot of people, I'll have 3 techs and 1 veterinarian. On a day with 2 veterinarians, I try to have 4 technicians or more, but it varies on availability.
Brandy.
When we have vets in, we have 3 techs and 1 supervisor. So 6 people run the whole clinic.
The reason I ask this question is just we do talk about veterinarians a lot, and I know we've mentioned on the support staff too. Sometimes it's not that easy finding the support staff either. And so it's multi-pronged recruiting at different levels to ensure that you have the appropriate support staff for the veterinarians. So I just
And don't look for those people. Look whether your state requires that they're certified or licensed or not, because I can say that a lot of times the most skilled people come in with the most issues, translating from private practice over into high volume, and they're going to give you the most pushback if they're not really open-minded. So train people. You know, in our state, it's not required to be certified or licensed or anything like that to be a technician. And so train them. You can't train people to be dedicated and to have empathy for people and to have good communication skills. You can't train people to have these things that they're supposed to have been taught, you know, growing up. But you can train them how to draw blood. You can train them how to use an anesthesia machine. You can train them how to run faster and deal with feral cats and such. And so look beyond what a title is, because I can tell you that a lot of these applications that come in are pieces of paper with very fancy ChatGPT words on them, and not necessarily an excellent staff member hidden behind it.
I'm just going to mention a couple of requests that have come out here. One is, does anyone know if there's a Facebook group for specifically for clinics that are starting out? If anyone knows what that link might be, throw that in the chat. Also, there's a request to get clinic like tours. If there's a video tour, anything like that you have on YouTube, throw that in the chat. And someone also recommended Helen Woodward. This was in the Q&A, so I'm not sure people are seeing this. Helen Woodward A Society has a wonderful Business of Saving Lives conference for anyone that is interested in, and I don't know anything about it other than that. And we are just about a minute over here. I want to thank the panelists. This was a great conversation. Thank you, Brandy, Tema, and Angela. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the
Stacy.
success of your clinic, and thank you so much for helping all the animals in your community, all those cats and dogs. Really appreciate you, all those tips happening. It just makes me all feel so great. So appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. And